Very shortly, we're going to have our next speaker come up. Aubrey Scott is going to be talking about inclusivity in gaming and how she puts her values into games that way. Give it up for Aubrey Scott.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my talk on values-driven game development. I am Aubrey Scott. I work on NASCAR games. I am a trans native woman of color trying to make this more inclusive, even in a sport that is mostly guys driving in a circle. I went to Carnegie Mellon for grad school, where I worked on a project that lowers the barrier to entry for tabletop role-playing games. And in my free time, I'm a safe space organizer for LGBTQ plus youth and adults. And so all of this is relevant because we're going to talk about the NASCAR Heat character creator and how I was able to put my values into that. And hopefully, you can take something from that and work it out for your own games. So our character creator works off of a system called blend shapes. And to make a blend shape, you duplicate a model, change something about it, and then it remembers the difference between that original and the new thing. And you're able to scale from one to the other. If you see on this model, the nose has changed, but we did this for a bunch of the different features, so that's basically how our technology works. But the first part of this process for me was identifying my own values, trying to figure out what would actually apply to this particular task. For me, that was diversity and inclusion and lowering the barrier to entry. And to solve these things, I specifically wanted to include trans people in our character creation process, specifically non-binary and the full spectrum of people who could be anywhere in between. And I wanted to do this by having a unified character model with masculine and feminine features that you could mix and match and kind of scale up from that androgynous model. From there, I wanted to make sure that everybody could see themselves in our character creator, and I kind of wanted to take a me character creator approach where you have many different styles that you pick from and then kind of scale in from there. So once I knew what I wanted to tackle, it was kind of important for me to think about my team and what they were interested in making with this redesign. From here, they were telling me that they were interested in making the highest quality assets that they could for the least amount of effort. And my boss specifically was interested in making sure that we could actually finish the feature on time, as well as improve the rate at which we could improve the product by creating assets. So to solve those things, I looked into being able to tint all of our textures for hair and skin and eyes, as well as having the reuse of having a unified character model. We didn't have to double up on male and female things. From there, my boss, I satisfied his needs by being able to do a bunch of prototypes to make sure that we would finish on time, but also using a program called Autodesk Character Generator to generate all of our base assets, since we needed to redo a whole bunch of things in a short period of time. But once we got greenlit, or rather, once we knew what we were going to do, I had to pitch it to them. And the strategy that I took was that I pitched to my team first. And then once I got them on board, I would have allies and we would all be pulling in the right direction so that we could pitch to my boss. And when I pitched to both my team and my boss, I focused on what they cared about rather than what I cared about, so that they could kind of be on board right away and make sure that their needs were being taken care of. From here, once we got greenlit, it was important that I moved into the shepherding role so that I made sure that the content was actually working the way that I expected. And so that meant bringing my values back into the picture. I had to tell my team about it so that they could actually create in that space. From here, I was kind of working against the default in the way that they all wanted to organize it in a binary fashion. And that didn't really work for our non-binary setup. I had to remind them and explain to them why it was important for us to hold space for non-binary people. And to also make sure that they created in that androgynous space as well. One of the cool things from this process was that I was able to actually remove gender from our code base, and that kind of protected the feature so that in the future it would be a lot harder to go against that grain. A lot of times in games thanks. A lot of times in games we put this stuff in there, but then it just reverts the next time. And so I want to make sure that this lasted and that people didn't have to put themselves in a box to pick out the character that they wanted to play. So once my work was done on the feature, it was time to move into the guardian role. And from here, I needed to make sure that the feature got to the finish line in the way that I expected that it would, even not working on it. It was a good thing that I checked in because we had a workflow trap that we kind of all fall into. Just going by the default, they were working on the masculine features first. And I kind of had to remind them that the character creator was the only place for femme and non-binary people to really see themselves in a very male-dominated sport when we're like modeling a real live-action thing. So we eventually shipped, and you can make all kinds of different people in our character creator. There is still a long way to go, but one of the things I was proud of was all the different people that you could make and that space in between. But I didn't get to celebrate for very long. In sports games, you kind of just make another game, and when I got a new team member on, they, again, wanted to organize all of my stuff in a binary. And I had to stop and be like, look, this is the strength of our character creator. We have all of these people that we can create who aren't on one side or the other. They're all in between, and we have to make space for that. And to my surprise, they actually started fighting for the feature themselves, and they would reinforce their own, all of the values that I had mentioned to them. And it got to be a little bit easier to make sure that my feature would really be the way that I imagined it. And one of the things that I'm hoping to have from this is that it will start to change it'll change the normal from being, maybe this will be the default from now on, and moving forward, I won't be the only one thinking about these issues when we have new features coming up. So I have a lot more to say on this particular subject, but I don't have a whole lot more time to say it. One of the things I do want to stress is that even in a NASCAR game, you can make a difference with whatever it is that you care about. And I want all of you to think about your games and your teams and how you can bring your own values into your games. So if you're going to do that, remember to identify your own values and which apply, identify your team's values and which ones apply, pitch to your team's values, bring your values back into it when you actually work on the thing, make sure you protect your feature as a guardian, and recruit other guardians after the thing is built. From here, you can find me on the internet at Aubrey Jane Scott, or on my website, aubreyjanescott.com, or come say hi at the conference. Thanks, everyone.
for Aubrey Scott. Fantastic.